Welcome to ANZAC House. We hope you enjoy your time with us today. We thank the volunteers from the ANZAC House Experience team for taking us on this wonderful journey. The presentation was authored by the amazing Rosemary Kennedy, who is the Executive Assistant to the RSL State President. It has been narrated by Kerry Burns, the Manager of the Volunteer Services team. Today we are taking you cruising up the River Collins. We will be calling into two ports on the way, number 151 and number 4. It's taken a while to chart this course, which is the history of two houses of ANZAC. It has been an interesting journey. Along the way, many things have been discovered. So, settle into your deck chairs and let's begin. The RSL's permanent first home was at 151 Collins Street. It no longer exists, but it was on the left side of Collins Street heading down and is currently the Versace store, next to Gucci, almost on the corner of Collins and Russell Streets. They rented this premises for a year in 1937 before moving into the purpose-built ANZAC House, where of course the RSL still lives today. This picture is included simply because it is so powerful to look at with the crowd and the length of the parade. The shot is taken on the corner of Collins and Elizabeth Streets, looking west, and there must have been at least 200,000 people watching. It's hard to guess how many soldiers are in this photo, but it captures exactly why there would have been a need for an association like the RSL to be established. Because when many of these soldiers in this photo returned home, they were either wounded, physically disabled, mentally unwell, or jobless. We know that close to 417,000 men enlisted in First World War across Australia. Of those, 114,000 were Victorians. Of the 89,000 of them who served abroad, 19,000 were killed. You can't tell a good story without a bit of background, so this is a quick history lesson on our beginnings. 12 newly returned soldiers met on the 8th of August 1915, and that night formed an association. The picture here is of the Orient Hotel, which was on the corner of Swanston and Burke Streets. No reference was found as to whether they were friends before they went to war, men who became mates while serving together in a unit, or just strangers. But nevertheless, the 12 of them are the acknowledged founders of what was to become eventually known as the League in Victoria. They met sometimes twice weekly for the next few months, from reading the original minutes, at different locations, and were welcomed into a variety of hotels and clubs by generous Melburnians who supported their cause, such as the Overseas Club, the Athenaeum Club, the City Club, the Block Arcade, and the Alexander Building. In 1916, they rented premises at the Alexander Building at 27 Swanston Street. This location was directly opposite St Paul's Cathedral. They formed a close connection with the church. The rented space was too small for the association, and they didn't have enough space for the returned men coming through the doors, so the church built a pop-up lounge and entertainment area. It was a really quick project, advertised in February and built by ANZAC Day. By mid-1917, they realised they needed a permanent, larger home, so they went on the hunt and in December of 1918 purchased 151 Collins Street. They had £7,000 from the existing funds, and through a public appeal yet to be organised, they intended to raise the rest. There was an article which described the building as having a garish facade, but many think it was an elegant frontage. And look at the huge RSL badge in the centre. As a sidebar, in November 1918, we had 40,000 members and 65 sub-branches, so there was obviously a definite need for the association to find its own home. The existing building had to be fitted out to suit what the association needed with offices, meeting rooms, accommodation and lounge areas. To raise the £30,000 needed to pay for the building, they launched the ANZAC Button Day on the 30th of May 1919. Volunteer collectors came from places like the Salvos and the YMCA. The appeal ran for several days, but no records were located showing how much was actually raised. Within 2 years of forming the association, they had an active employment bureau running by 1917. It was obviously a very successful program because by 1923 they had found over 2,400 jobs for returned servicemen. The Vocational Guidance Bureau was busy because many of the returned men no longer could find work in their previous fields, so they had to learn new trades and new careers. There are court report articles of returned men who listed their address as 151 Collins Street, so we assume we gave temporary lodging to itinerant ex-servicemen who were down on their luck and had returned to very petty crime. Sporting clubs were very active at the time, and all the clubs carried out their administration at 151 Collins. Reading articles from the time, all these associations had offices within ANZAC House from as early as 1922. You can see a lot of them are like-minded organisations, such as the Soldiers' Mothers Association and the War, Widow and Widowed Mothers Association. The Returned Army Nurses Club became a sub-branch, and they operate from ANZAC House still to today, and we still host the Humane Society for their monthly meeting. This gives you an idea of how many sub-branches there were in 1935. Try and count the red dots. There's a challenge for you. We do know we had 21,000 members at the end of 1936. This picture has either been taken on top of the building that was standing at number 4 before ANZAC House was built, or the building next door, Alcaston House, because the little house still stands on the rooftop of number 8, which you can see in the picture on the right that was taken recently. We had exactly the same house on the top of number 4 when it was 3 floors, and the caretaker of our building lived there. It was set toward the back of the building. It was a proper 2-bedroom home. Reference material says space was an issue, so they decided to find another home. 151 just became too small for their needs, and maybe they were already looking to the future and what was happening in Europe in 1937. Germany, Italy and Japan had formed an alliance which the rest of the world thought was a precursor to another world war, which of course turned out to be true. The association moved to the end of Burke Street into the empty tramways building whilst they plotted their next move. They picked up a bargain at number 4 for £19,000. The existing building, which was being used as a car park, was demolished and construction started in October of 1937. The architect was Norman Taylor. He enlisted in April 1915 as a 20-year-old carpenter. He fought with the 22nd Battalion in Gallipoli and then in France with the 7th Battalion, and he survived. By 1938, he was already a past president of Dandenong sub-branch, and from articles written about him, he was a very highly thought of amongst his peers. As with any building project, the cost blew out by £16,000 by its completion. The renting of offices as professional chambers happened up until 2001, There are offices on the 3rd floor rented to a doctor and a group of architects. Couple of pictures of the compositions today. It's a mystery whose face that is on the right. Although construction was still underway on the top floors, admin staff moved into the building in mid-June to prepare for the July opening. I doubt you'd see that be allowed to happen today. The building was officially opened on the 13th of July 1938 at 3:30 p.m. To coincide with the opening, the Deputy Premier at the time announced that legislation would be introduced into Parliament to rectify the disabilities under which returned soldier settlers were working. This was a huge announcement at the time. The architect presented the Chairman of Trustees with a gold key to the conference room, made in the form of a badge of the League. From the description, it must have been impressive. The whereabouts of this is unknown at this time. As with any building project, the cost blew out by £16,000 by its completion. The renting of offices as professional chambers happened up until 2001. There were offices on the 3rd floor rented to a doctor and a group of architects. This is an original of the program for the official opening. This is on display on the ground floor in the display cabinets. The only picture found from the official opening has been taken in the boardroom. Mr. Mullins was the Chairman of Trustees in the middle, and he's facing the badge, as is George Holland, the State President. Facing the badge was a sign of respect by returned servicemen. These are our 3 foundation stones, located just inside the glass doors at the front of the building. They are easily missed unless you are looking directly at them. They are hard to photograph because they are etched directly into the marble. By 2001, the building was 63 years old and in need of repair and modernisation. It was a very curious renovation to watch unfold because whilst the offices in the building were gutted, parts of them, such as the doors and glass panels above the doors, had to remain because the building is heritage listed. The hallways remained relatively untouched also. All the windows are original. The wood panelling, heavily prevalent on the ground floor, is also original. It was a laborious process with Heritage Victoria. Before anything was done, they came in and spent a long time photographing every office, hallway, toilet, window, tap and light fixture, and then decided what we could change and what had to remain in its exact original place. There was an old boiler in the basement which heated the whole building, so if you worked on the 3rd floor, the heating didn't reach you until well after lunchtime in the winter. That was hard. Although there was no air conditioning prior to the renovation, because of the stone and concrete facade, the building stayed very cool in the summer heat. To offset the cost of the renovation, it was always the intention to add additional floors, but Heritage Victoria was adamant that we could not change the facade of the existing building, and that is why level 4 and 5 is set back from the street, so you can't see either level from the street. It was a disappointment when it was discovered that things had been removed from the building by construction workers. The English emblem on the safe, the emblem on the front lift were taken, and the Lest We Forget clock was taken from the boardroom. There was a lot of industrial action during those 2 years, which meant the site was shut down for weeks at a time. The pictures included show just how some things didn't change after the renovation. The front foyer is relatively untouched. The picture on the left is from 1938. The building did win some architectural awards for its Art Deco style, and you can see it there with the beautiful granite and stainless steel work. There was no other building in Melbourne just like it at the time. A before and after picture of the State President's office. Aside from the foyer, the boardroom and the State President's office were the least altered spaces during the renovation. The boardroom in 1938 on the left. The door on the right of the picture connects the State President's office with the boardroom. The left picture with an arrow shows you where something is in the next slide. There is a blackboard hidden behind the panel on the left of the picture. This was so innovative for that time. It was their version of a whiteboard in 1938. The tables in the boardroom today are the originals. The wood panel work is still there, and you can just see the clock that was knocked off at the top of the left picture. You might notice that the walls are empty because the honour boards hadn't yet been made. The man marked with the arrow was our State Secretary for 33 years, Peter Venn. And next to him, on his right, is Sir William Hall, who was both our State President and a National President. The Army Nurses Club was the fixture from 1922. The entire back section on level 2, the COO's office onwards, was their club rooms. The doors are still there where the arrow is. The middle picture is taken from the back of the room looking back toward the hallway. The heater in the bottom picture is original and it's still in the COO's office, although it doesn't work. The original room had a damask rose velvet curtains, rose patterned carpets and ivory pink lampshades. The rooms were open every day and both current and ex-servicewomen could visit the lounge at any time for sandwiches, tea and scones, and perhaps even a sherry. Here are some examples of the things we couldn't change. Picture 1. None of the tiling on the back stairs could be touched. Picture 2 is the safe which remained in its original position. It was in an office, but now a kitchen has been built around it. Picture 3. is inside the safe. Just to show people who may not know, this is where we hold all the originals of the minutes back from 1915. They are the grey books on the middle shelf, all handwritten, annual reports, and the original copies of Mufti. It's water and fireproof. Picture 4 is the original vents where the heating came through. They aren't in use now, but they remain throughout the building. Picture 5 is the mailboxes in the front foyer. They are a beautiful feature and are still in use. Picture 6 and 7 are in the CEO's office. Both the CEO and State President's offices have a wash basin. Again, so innovative for the time. The sink is cracked and the English tap's really old, but again, Heritage Victoria wouldn't allow us to modernise them, so they are the originals. This is the unisex bathroom on the first floor. Heritage Victoria loved the tiling and the original basin and taps, so nothing was altered in there. The stall doors are original, as are the windows. We had an armoury in the basement where weapons were stored, both live and innocuous. Recently, when this picture was taken, you could still see the rifle stands and the original brickwork, which is still in amazingly good condition. A bit more history. We have had 4 name changes. The biggest change was in 1940 to include airmen, and to the name in 1990. The inclusion of the word "and" reflected the fact that membership of the League was now open to all ex-service men and women, with no requirement that a person be returned from active service. Almost in tandem, the badge has undergone similar changes like our name. The first badge is 2-figured, 1919 to 1941. The second badge remained at 2 figures but included the word airman in 1942. The third badge included an airman, 1947. The fourth badge reflected the change to the name, 1965, and the fourth figure included a woman in 1990. The RSL was a very social body. The reference to private hospitality was for Allied servicemen visiting Victoria. The RSL put out the call to families to have them stay in their homes rather than on their own in a hotel, which they probably couldn't afford anyway. The state balls and the Miss RSL pageant were very popular in the late 1940s through to the 1970s. Overseas tours were organised, and the coronation tour, unsurprisingly, was sold out. Holiday camps like the Portsea camp still happens. It was just on a much larger scale after World War I and World War II than it is now. The Children's Health Bureau was run to help families place children in country homes for a short time to recover from illness. And there were references to children with mental illness because they had either lost their father in the war or he had come home with injuries that affected the child so badly they ended up unwell. There has been 3 news journals over the last 101 years. The Bayonet from 1919, the Monthly Review in 1931, and Mufti from 1934 till now. A state RSL band from 1917, they perform multiple times during the week and weekends solely to help raise money for different appeals. The Women's Auxiliaries began over 100 years ago. The ANZAC Day Commemoration Council, that's the body who oversee the ANZAC Day March, have been going for more than 95 years and they still meet twice yearly in ANZAC House. With World War II beginning in 1939, there was a call to men to join up. There was such a rush that pop-up recruiting offices were opened all over Melbourne, and there was one in ANZAC House on the ground floor. You could also join up at any sub-branch in the country. The state executive sent out a wire. A wire's like a fax or email to us these days, to all sub-branches urging them to make immediate contact with every ex-soldier in their district and ask them to enlist in the reserve for the expected fighting effort Australia was about to give to our allies. The RSL was the administrator of the fundraising to build the shrine. That was a long process. The foundation stone was laid in November 1927, but wasn't opened until November 1934. The basement today is very gloomy. It's hard to imagine it was once filled with children that were happy to visit the nurse down there for a health check and vaccinations. Victoria is the last remaining original ANZAC House standing. Ladies and gentlemen, we have made it dockside. It was lovely to look back over the years at the League and see that it has been and continues to be such a prominent ex-service body in Victoria's history. We hope you have learned something today that you didn't know before. Thank you.